In the annals of history, there are few chapters as harrowing as the persecution of those accused of witchcraft. From the dense forests of Europe to the burgeoning colonies of America, societies were gripped by an intense fear of dark forces, leading them to devise horrific punishments for anyone suspected of sorcery. Fueled by superstition, religious fervor, and a thirst for control, these punishments were as much a spectacle as they were a brutal means of enforcing conformity. In this video, we will delve into some of the most notorious methods used to torment those deemed witches, methods designed not just to inflict pain, but to send a chilling message to all who witness them. Stay with us as we uncover these dark episodes in history, where mere accusation could mean a terrifying descent into unimaginable suffering. The witch hunt. The term witch hunt refers not just to the act of punishing alleged witches but to the widespread campaigns that fueled mass paranoia and rampant persecution. From the 15th to the 18th centuries, witch hunts plagued Europe, with the most infamous trials taking place in places like Salem, Massachusetts, and in regions across France, Germany, and Scotland. Often, these hunts were endorsed by influential institutions, driven by societal fears, religious beliefs, and superstitions. Driven by fear and fueled by religious authority, witch hunters scoured villages for any signs of witchcraft. Many of the accused faced trials, and proof of witchcraft could range from the possession of simple herbs to strange birthmarks, sometimes called witches' marks. Once suspected, the accused were subjected to brutal tests to prove their guilt, often leading to horrific punishments. The witch's chair. The witch's chair was an exceptionally cruel method of torture that reflected the terrifying lengths society would go to force confessions. Known primarily in Germany and later adopted in other parts of Europe, the witch's chair was made of iron and covered with sharp spikes on the seat, back, armrests, and even the footrest. The accused would be bound tightly to the chair, pressing their skin against the spikes with no chance of relief. Interrogators would question the accused while they endured unimaginable pain. In some cases, the chair would be heated, causing severe burns on the victim's body. It was believed that a witch would not feel pain if she was truly guilty, a superstitious notion that made the chair a common instrument in trials. If the accused cried out in agony, interrogators took it as evidence of guilt, convinced that a witch would break down under extreme duress. Historical records show that this method was as much about instilling fear in the community as it was about extracting confessions. The sight of someone bound to a chair of spikes would have served as a powerful deterrent to anyone harboring doubts about the witch hunts or the religious authority behind them. Burned alive at the stake. Among all the punishments for witchcraft, burning at the stake is perhaps the most notorious. This method of execution, known as one of the cruelest, was primarily associated with countries like France, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire. The act of burning was seen as a form of cleansing, where fire would supposedly rid the soul of evil and prevent any demonic force from reanimating the body. While burning was common in Europe, England had its own variations. In England, witches were more frequently hanged, as burning was typically reserved for those guilty of petty treason. In Scotland, however, the flames were the preferred method. French philosopher Michel de Montaigne famously commented on the madness of burning accused witches, saying it is putting a very high price on one's conjectures to have a man roasted alive because of them. Montaigne's observation highlights the absurdity of condemning people based on suspicions. Thousands, both women and men, faced death by fire across Europe, often with little evidence other than hearsay and fear. The psychological and physical suffering of such a punishment was extreme. Witnesses to these executions often reported the horror of watching someone burn, the cries for mercy echoing through the air. The witch's bridle. The witch's bridle, also known as the scold's bridle or branks, served as both a punishment and a tool for public humiliation. This device, typically a metal mask or cage that fit over the person's head, had a spiked plate that pressed against the tongue or roof of the mouth. Any attempt to speak would cause severe pain, effectively silencing the accused. Known primarily in England and Scotland, the witch's bridle was not exclusively used for witches, but also for women accused of being scolds or public nuisances. The victim was often paraded through the streets, an act that served to humiliate her publicly and prevent any attempt at defending herself or uttering supposed curses. The bridle reflects the era's strict societal control over women and anyone who spoke against prevailing norms. The device ensured that women, particularly those viewed as outspoken or troublesome, were effectively silenced, rendering them powerless in both physical and social terms. Hanging execution. In England and parts of colonial America, hanging was the primary method of execution for those convicted of witchcraft. Hanging was deemed slightly more humane than burning, although it still resulted in a torturous death. In the 17th century, during the height of the witch trials, hundreds of women and men faced the noose, with public hangings often turning into communal events. Sir Thomas Browne, a 17th-century English physician, supported the belief in witchcraft and its dangers. He wrote about witchcraft as a sinister and seducing art that exposed people to the wrath and malice of the devil. His words capture the general mindset that witches represented a genuine danger to society and that executing them was a necessary act to protect the community. While hanging did not involve fire or spikes, it was still an excruciatingly painful way to die. The sight of a public hanging served as both a warning and a grim spectacle, further solidifying the fear surrounding accusations of witchcraft. Drowning. Drowning, or the swimming test, was a notorious method used to determine a person's guilt. The accused was bound and thrown into a body of water. If they floated, they were declared guilty, as water was believed to reject witches. However, if they sank, they were considered innocent, though many drowned before they could be pulled out of the water. Known as a trial by ordeal, this practice was legally sanctioned in some parts of Europe and reflected a time when superstition took precedence over logic. This test was ultimately a death sentence disguised as a trial, leading to the deaths of many innocent people. Reginald Scott, an English historian, denounced the practice of witch trials in his book The Discovery of Witchcraft, describing them as founded on superstition and ignorance, lacking both mercy and reason. The drowning test, like many other methods, was based on the flawed idea that supernatural powers could be proven through physical tests. Sadly, countless individuals perished, their innocence or guilt never truly established. The rack torture. The rack was an instrument of terror across medieval Europe, used not exclusively for witches but frequently employed in witch trials. The accused's limbs were tied to rollers at both ends of a wooden frame, and as the rollers were turned, the body would be stretched to the point of dislocation or even breaking. This method, used particularly in regions like France, Spain, and Italy, became synonymous with torture sanctioned by the state. It forced confessions from those accused of witchcraft who could not endure the excruciating pain. Italian philosopher Cesare Beccaria later condemned such methods in On Crimes and Punishments 1764, advocating for rational justice over inhumane practices, reflecting a shift in societal attitudes toward punishment. The rack illustrates the cruelty embedded in witch trials, with confessions often obtained under conditions that would lead anyone to admit to anything to escape the agony. Innocence was irrelevant, what mattered was conformity to the authorities' desires for control. The brutal punishments for accused witches serve as stark reminders of the power of fear, ignorance, and unchecked authority. The methods devised to purge evil often ended in tragedy, stripping countless individuals of their dignity, freedom, and lives. These histories call us to reflect on humanity's darker tendencies, warning us of the devastating consequences when judgment replaces justice and superstition overrules compassion. Today, we must remember these harrowing stories not only to honor the innocent lives lost but also to remind ourselves of the importance of reason, empathy, and courage in the face of collective fear. Let us carry forward these lessons to ensure such horrors remain firmly in the past. For more insights into history's complex and oftentimes disturbing past, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for upcoming videos.